Well, good morning. I want to reiterate a welcome to all of you who are here for this remembrance of 9/11. We are all here to honor those who lost their lives as a result of the infamous and cowardly terrorist attack that occurred on this day 14 years ago. We also want to honor the courage, bravery, and dedication of all the men and women who heroically risked their lives and gave their lives so that others may live, to include the many others who poured forth various forms of support around this region from this great nation. We must never forget to lose our keen vigilance about what had happened to those unsuspecting victims at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and aboard those 4 commercial passenger aircraft. Our men and women in uniform, special operations, intelligence, as well as law enforcement and firefighters at the federal, state, and local level have all been greatly impacted from that event, and now the way that we address our homeland security has seen life-altering changes. For all Americans for all time, the phrase 9/11 will forever invoke a special meaning, a memory of a moment in our history when the world as we knew it changed forever. It is fitting that every year on September 11th, Americans join together, like we are today, to honor the memory of more than 3,000 people who died that day. And it is fitting that we observe a moment of silence as tribute to those lives cut short and as still a symbol of the empty places left behind in the hearts of those still living. But these solemn ceremonies on September 11th will always be more than a remembrance of the past and more than a tribute to the lives lost 14 years ago. These ceremonies are and will always be a remembrance and a tribute to both the living and the dead. So today we recall and we celebrate what we've learned about ourselves on September 11th, 2001. We recall and we celebrate how we acted that day. We will remember once again how ordinary human beings living their ordinary lives reacted with extraordinary heroism. And without warning and in an instant, they were thrown face to face with the most fundamental questions of human existence. On September 11, 2001, we saw ordinary people choose duty before self. In the face of imminent danger, we saw security guards in the World Trade Center continue to help get people out even as the buildings were collapsing around them. On September 11th, we saw bravery at its finest and during its darkest hour. New York City firefighters and Port Authority police officers chose self-sacrifice in the face of overwhelming danger and death to head into the Twin Towers and rescue civilians, only to give the ultimate sacrifice that a sworn public safety officer can give, their own life. 72 police officers and 343 firefighters were lost that day doing just that. It was the greatest single loss of firefighters and police officers at any single event in the history of our nation. Despite the fear, anger, and confusion, we saw loyalty of friends as firefighters, police officers, and even construction workers alike all searched tirelessly together through the rubble at Ground Zero. Day in and day out, they all searched for any survivors, hoping to find one of their own. On September 11, 2001, we saw ordinary people perform a selfless act of valor for the good of strangers, as the passengers on the plane of Flight 93 over Pennsylvania refused to allow the hijackers to succeed. On September 11th, we saw the impeccable courage of our nation's military personnel at the Pentagon, who rushed back into our nation's National Defense Headquarters to save their fellow comrades, then rallying back 24 hours later in the face of tyranny by draping the American flag over the side of the stricken building, sending a message to our enemies that our flag will forever stand for freedom and these national colors on our flag will never run. On September 11, 2001, we even saw ordinary people choosing to spend their final moments expressing their love to their families and friends, knowing these final moments would likely be their last. There's a man in New York who has taped many of these final messages, and he listens to the tapes every day because it's such a pure expression of human love. Americans will continue to be meeting like this every September on this day, this Patriot Day. They will meet to refresh our national memory of what we learned from that day, 2001. Not only to recognize that we have enemies in this world who would destroy us if they could, but to recognize the age-old verities of duty, loyalty, self-sacrifice, fellowship, and love, all of which as a nation we possess. But more importantly, to echo those qualities that still have meaning and still flourish in the hearts of all ordinary American people who we all live and work with every day. So today, as we think back on the events of 9/11 that occurred 14 years ago, our sorrow of the loss of so many good people should be tempered by the example shown by so many who died and so many who lived. They taught us through their actions that day, what it means to be human. They showed us the immutable value, again, of loyalty, duty, self-sacrifice, fellowship, and love. The only way we will triumph over terrorism and conquer the senseless tragedy of that horrible day is by celebrating the kindness of the human spirit. So today, as we remember those who were lost, let us never forget the events that occurred on September 11th. And I ask you to join me in faith to pledge that not only will good endure, it will prevail. And now what we'd like to do is present the colors. Detail. Post.